Thank you, Saket. And thank you all for being here so bright and early. Hopefully you all grabbed your cup of coffee and are ready to go. We have a lively presentation and then a very lively panel discussion after that, and then we can have some Q&As. So the DCF Sustainability Subgroup Project was started a couple of years back. In 2022, myself, Julius, and Robert kicked it off at the Global Summit. And we have a lot of exciting updates to share with the team. So on the stage with me today, I have Robert Bunger from Schneider Electric, Robert Walicki from Nalco, Julius Kusuma from Meta, and then Jaime Comella from AQ Compute. Jaime and Julius are filling in for some of the work stream leads, so thank you so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate you. So our work stream, what we wanted to do is we wanted to incorporate sustainability within our data center facility aspect. One of the things that we realized quite early on is the data center industry as a whole did not have a good understanding of embodied carbon. And so we decided to launch the data center facility work stream. And with that, we launched several sub-work streams as well to address various sustainability focus areas. The first focused area was heat, energy, and water. And that's led by Aaron Wemhoff. Aaron is actually not able to be present because he's 2 conference rooms down, and he is presenting the keynote at the Future Technologies Conference, which is a big win for us as a sustainability team. So filling in for him is Jaime. And then the metrics work stream is led by Robert Bunger. And we're really excited to share that our very first contribution from the sustainability team under DCF was issued this week by Robert and team. So congratulations, Robert. And then construction emissions reduction is led by Stevie Lynn Bird, and she was unable to be here. But since Julius was one of the pioneers of this work stream, we decided to have him represent and fill in for Stevie Lynn. And then direct evaporative cooling best practices is one of our newest work streams, and Robert Walicki is representing that for us today. We will have 3 white papers published by the end of the year, hopefully 4, and throughout the presentation, you'll hear about it. And then, we also collaborate across work streams as well and with other organizations. Yesterday, George Chaperon talked about collaboration with the Net Zero Innovation Hub. But one of the organizations that this work stream was key in establishing the initial touch point with was the iMasons Climate Accord. And OCP has, apart from data center facility sustainability, they have an overarching sustainability project that spans all of the different working groups. DCF is just one of them. And so as part of that, we have a carbon disclosure presentation as well that will take place later on today. So if you have time, stop by and listen to that. The carbon disclosure is all about disclosing, suppliers disclosing their embodied carbon in their equipment. And I think if we have any suppliers here in the room, I think it's important for you to participate. We'd be looking forward to getting your feedback on that, on the disclosures and what you're willing to disclose as a supplier in terms of your embodied carbon emissions. So I wanted to share some group highlights. This is a nice pictogram of all of our accomplishments and presentations that we did. On the top left, you see myself, Julius, and Robert kicking off our sustainability workstream in 2022. Below that, you see us at the Global Summit last year on a sustainability panel. To the right, at the top right, the EMEA conference in 2023 in Prague. I presented a panel discussion at the keynote, and we had representation from CNDCP and a colo provider. And then below that, myself and Julius presenting on green concrete at the 2024 regional conference in EMEA. And then on the right, last year's individual presenters from the individual work streams within sustainability presenting. So, we have been very busy. We are a very active work stream, and we're always looking for participation. So before I say any more, I'm going to hand over to each one of the work stream representatives to talk about the work streams and provide an update. So first up, we have Rob Walicki.
Hi, thanks, Priya. I'm going to give an update on the work that we're doing in our subgroup around direct evaporative cooling. I became the lead of this work stream not that long ago. I really appreciate the contributions and input that we get on our monthly meetings from people that join. Most of our work right now is around finishing a white paper that's going to be focused primarily on both design and operational best practices for direct evaporative cooling systems in data centers. Our customers are challenged by water consumption as well as their power utilization and attempts to reduce carbon emissions. So white paper's focused on all aspects of operation, including crafting best practices around the adiabatic media itself, the water utilization, factors to consider when contemplating water sources and how best to harness your water, as well as engineering and power constraints in addition to that. Our next steps are to continue drafting that white paper. We have a fair amount of content complete already, but we are looking for any volunteers, particularly around the engineering space. So if people are out there and interested in contributing, you can join our monthly meetings and pick up topics. And we're just marching forward, continuing to finalize the draft of that document.
Hi, I'm Jaime. Well, thank you for being here so early as well. So on the water heat energy workstream, we have focused on a white paper where we study the different impacts on the water, the energy, and the carbon from different cooling strategies, right? So we have studied that only for scope 1 and 2, mostly for scope 1 and 2. And this is, for example, what happens if you use evaporative cooling. You all might know that. You increase the water consumption on site, but you decrease it outside. So you decrease the virtual water consumption at utility, and you decrease the energy consumption, of course. So this is only an example of it. But we had done also the same for example, what happens if you use heat reuse? Well, it depends also if for heat reuse you're using a heat pump or not. So all these things, all these discussions are in this white paper. You have there the QR code. Yeah, you can scan it. We have the final draft. Hopefully we'll be able to publish this in the next weeks. So please feel free to leave comments. Join the calls. You are very welcome. And future work will be probably to deepen in those examples. For example, to quantify really how much water, for example, in global is consumed when you do these shifts. Yeah, this is, for example, questions that we left open, and also, for example, the embodied water of the manufacturing. This is something we haven't discussed. So there might be a lot of future work there. So if you think this is interesting for you, please join. We're happy to see you there around.
I'm Julius Kusuma from Meta. I'll be speaking on behalf of the workstream and the workstream lead, Steve Lin, who's unable to be here today. As you heard yesterday in the keynotes and the presentations, AI growth has meant that the facility has to evolve with the evolution of air-cooled and liquid-cooled technologies. Construction emission is really important because it's a big contributor to the overall data center carbon footprint. And a lot of the challenges come from the use of hard-to-abate materials such as concrete and steel. You'll hear from us further right after this. We have a presentation about addressing some of these really difficult challenges. We have a number of activities in this work stream. One of them is about a white paper, looking at different technologies and what's available and what needs to be developed together. In the next steps, we'll be developing the use of LCAs to guide the sustainability decision in data center design and construction.
Hi, everybody. Rob Bunger from Schneider Electric. First, as Priya had said, we are very excited that we finished up, and the metrics paper is now published as of a couple of days ago, I believe. It got through approval. And I want to thank all the work stream participants for contributing to the paper. One of the things I love about open compute is that the barrier to entry and make a difference is just your time, right? There's no financial commitment, so it's great. So if you're an expert in an area, you're able to make a difference here. So the metrics paper is something that we hope will get folks that are maybe focusing purely on things like PUE and to look across a lot of the different areas of sustainability to be able to make improvements. And the old saying is, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. So the sustainability is looking again not just at energy, not just at carbon, but also looking at water and looking at waste as well as the local ecosystem. So the paper's pretty educational on that. So I'd suggest anybody to take it and share it out with folks who are willing to learn more. A key aspect of this, and I want to thank Mark Dancy here for all his input, is that this is going to be incorporated into the data center, make sure I'm going to say it right, the OCP Ready Data Center Facility project, right? The recognition program. Thank you. So now data centers that want to become recognized will have to show some transparency on their sustainability metrics. Again, all in an effort to hopefully push the industry forward with regards to sustainability. So that's an update on our end.
That's great to hear, Robert. That's very exciting. And so what's your vision related to how this would be incorporated? Would it be like a checklist that the vendor would have to go through, or the colo provider would have to go through to get that certification?
Yeah, and I'll lean on Mark maybe later to give more details. But in the paper, we do talk about, out of the, I forget the number of total metrics, the 27 metrics that we have, some are required, some are optional. And so the idea is, hey, you have to report this publicly on a website, and probably during the certification process, I would expect they'd have to explain on how they're going to measure it and where they're going to publish the data, so that it's visible to the community.
Great. Yes, I'm glad that we're taking the next steps in each one of the work streams. As you can see, the direct evaporative cooling is just taking off. We've already got our first publication with the metrics. We've got a paper in review that's looking for your comments with our heat, energy, water work stream, and then a paper that's almost ready for review with our construction emissions. So really proud of this team and everything that they've accomplished. So Jaime, I was going to ask you a question related to heat, energy, and water. You must be firstly relieved that the paper is out and ready, draft is out there for review. But I was looking at the paper yesterday, and it talks about the critical balance between heat, energy, and carbon. And I was wondering if you could share with the audience, like, what are some of the trade-offs related to heat, energy, and water when it comes to selection of cooling equipment for your data center?
Yeah, well, I introduced the problematic a bit before. When talking about evaporative cooling, I mean, you reduce the energy, you increase the water consumption on site, but what happens then outside of your data center? It depends on the power mix, where the power sources you're using, etc. On liquid cooling as well, I mean, there is a similar effect, so reduce energy consumption, reduce water consumption usually, because you need less evaporative cooling if you were using that as a baseline. But maybe, and this is something probably the future work will try to discuss about, introducing liquid cooling can increase your embodied carbon on the other side. I mean, for example, at a server level, I think it's kind of clear that you need more copper and more material. So to quantify that is something that will be very interesting. You need a CDU, You might not need chillers, so you might have a less embodied carbon there, but it depends again on the temperatures.
That's right.
So there is no straight answer for anything. So that's why we are actually doing these papers, and we want to quantify this a bit better. So, and also I mentioned the embodied water of the manufacturing. So this is something that is very well known in the concrete and in the building sector. But what about the MEP, the power distribution and the cooling machines? This is something we are still walking the first steps into that. Yeah, and so this will be a very interesting discussion to go forward.
Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. I can definitely see embodied water being at the forefront, especially with AI taking off and liquid to the chip cooling, requiring that much water. Embodied water in your entire supply chain is going to become a big focus for a lot of folks.
Exactly, because we are only talking about the operative water we are using. There's some article, I think in the Washington Post, that was saying for each AI query, you need a bottle of water. No, it was a half-liter bottle of water. But this is taking into account only the operative water. And of course, maybe the state-of-the-art not the state of the art, maybe the traditional way of cooling data centers with evaporative cooling, not with direct liquid cooling. Maybe that's what's coming next.
Yeah. For our audience here, just a quick explanation of what you mean by embodied water so that they understand what that is.
For the manufacturing of, let's take as an example, let's take a chip. Yeah. For the, I mean, here we're more on data center facilities, but I would take the chip because it's probably probably the worst case, honestly. For the manufacture of that chip, you need a ton of materials, ton of metals. You have a lot of byproducts, but you need tons of water. You need really, for 1 gram of a chip, you need tons of water for extracting the metals. So that process, the mining needs a lot of water first of all. And then the machines that are working sometimes, they work based on water. They cut with water. So there are a lot of processes in the manufacturing of the machines we are using that they need a decent amount of water. And we don't know exactly, we are not really quantifying that amount of water because this is information that needs to come from the supply chain.
Yeah. So Bob, you leading the DEC facilities working group, and you talked about water quality, and I was wondering, like, what is the relation between water quality and efficiency of your cooling plant? Could you explain that to the audience here?
Sure, and I think Jaime did a really good job of setting it up in terms of describing all of the trade-offs that our customers have to encounter when trying to both reduce their power consumption as well as their water utilization, even in direct evaporative systems. So we know that within data center users and operators, right, that they're encountering more and more issues with the water quality that they're seeing available to them to use to do a direct evaporative cooling, and asking questions about how that impacts their media, how it impacts their media lifetime, how it impacts their ability to cycle up within their sumps and within their evaporative sumps, and what types of considerations they need to focus on to continue to get the same performance and efficiency out of these systems, even in the face of, basically incredible water challenges and deterioration of water quality, depending on where they're building their facilities. And a big part of our focus is going to be around, with this white paper, is trying to provide guidelines on how to improve their operations, both from a power and water perspective, even in the face of water quality challenges.
Great. I think we are almost at time. So Julius, before we open the floor up to audience questions, I wanted to check with you and see, what is your vision for this work stream moving forward, and how can we better leverage OCP as a community to get our message out there?
Yeah, I think we should be inspired by the successes that other parts of OCP has won in the last couple of years, in standardization and being able to move the ecosystem. When it comes to construction, we are dealing with very difficult to abate materials, but the lever that we can use to decarbonize the data center itself varies depending on the materials. For example, steel, maybe you have to rely on redesign of the data center itself. Concrete, though, which is one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time on, the supply chain looks very different. the design is very close to the delivery point. Every batch plant in the US can design their own formulas. And maybe we can use AI and data to come up with reference formulas and promote the innovation speed in this space.
Yeah, and like chip providers and data center suppliers are very familiar with OCP and OCP marketplace, right? But some of the materials we deal with, steel, concrete, MEP equipment, a lot of those vendors are not very familiar with OCP. They're not familiar with the OCP marketplace, and I think for this team, for me, it's going to be really important for us to engage with Mark Dancy and team with OCP marketplace as well as OCP ready, and create that ecosystem so that we can bring more external vendors that are not data center centric to the table and introduce them to this industry.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had a number of engagements with big players in the construction domain, and they're all very excited to learn more about OCP. They're intrigued that such an organization exists,
Yeah.
and they can see this being the template for success in their own domain.
You know what would be really great is if we could have like a qualification for concrete.
Wouldn't it be amazing?
know.
You could know the performance of the material that you're buying. Just like when you buy IT equipment, you want to know how it performs in a 10 kilowatt rack or 35 or whatever the size you want. Wouldn't it be amazing?
I think it would, yeah. Well, with that, thank you all for listening to our panel discussion. This is our call to action. Please come join us, participate. As you can see, we're very excited about what we do in sustainability. And now I think let's open up the panel to audience questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask your questions.
This is for Rob Bunger. So I think it's great, the metrics and how you've laid this out in the white paper. And I see the required or recommended, and I guess that's for OCP-ready data centers. How optimistic are you that we're going to see more data centers actually reporting this data? And do you envision in the future perhaps some government regulatory requirements where they're going to say, hey, okay, data centers, you're growing so fast. We really need you to report all of this information, right? Obviously, country by country. But I think there's a need for that, right, to see more visibility of that data and information per data center.
Yes, that was a very leading question because it is you're right. The regulations are starting to happen, and again, I'll thank Mark for really pulling up what's happening in Europe with regards to reporting these. And I think it's up to us as a community to really drive this faster than regulations, right, if we can, and help guide those things. And usually, from what I've seen, the folks that are involved in OCP and maybe iMasons and some of the standards organization and the European DC organizations are usually all connected. So hopefully there will be some harmonizations across countries so that it's not, one of these kind of standards nightmares. But it's all moving in the right direction. I think the media focus on AI has kind of slowed down the focus on sustainability for a little bit, but I do see it coming back up.
Just want to follow up on the point about the reporting. And one of the things that we're missing at the moment is some standardization around the actual measuring and the calculation of these metrics. We're having an issue where the hyperscalers are having to customize their telemetry when they deploy in a third-party data center. So we are just about to get to the stage of being able to get some collaboration going, where the hyperscalers will be coming together to create some requirements, and then we're sharing that with the community and get their feedback. But this is an important aspect that it's very well us asking, but we've also got to help data center operators with how they are going to be able to report. But it's also important for the European Commission as well, because we've got to help them with providing the information in the European Union. So yeah, there's some other activities that are aligned with this. I'm trying to help this actually happen and help with it becoming a requirement.
Just to give an insight on that, the EED, the European Energy Efficiency Directive, has released this reporting scheme for data centers, and they're not really asking for metrics, but for the raw data. So how much water are you consuming? And you have to measure it here. How much energy are you consuming and where? What's the temperature of your excess heat, etc. Even the traffic data on traffic, on so I mean things that are a bit tricky maybe to get. So probably that's something that we have to align with.
Absolutely, and yeah, Kalos historically have been secretive about this, but this is what we're trying to promote within OCP and within the community, more transparency. And so yeah, that's what we're leading towards.
And more transparency results in us being able to identify the problem areas, right? So that we can then focus our efforts towards making the industry as a whole more successful.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning. Jim Smithson, I'm with a company called Technor Apex. We're a material science company. Most of your fiber optics uses our material for like the insulation and the jacket and such. It kind of leads into the discussion you mentioned about getting many other companies involved. You know, we have a lot of different sustainable products. We have renewable, we have carbon neutral additives. And I find it, when you compare this industry to, like, I've been in automotive for so many years, there's literally materials departments. Here it's much more difficult or confusing to get involved. And I'm just curious I just joined this within a couple weeks, you know, these different work streams, but I'm just curious in what you feel is the best way to get a company, you know, or a multi-billion-dollar materials company, and I just feel there should be a seat at the table to really help in these spaces.
Absolutely. Come talk to me afterwards, and we can introduce you to the folks at OCP and definitely get you involved. Thank you. Thank you so much for your interest.
Okay,
Really
thank you.
appreciate it. Any other questions?
If not, I have one question. First of all, thanks for the amazing work the group has been doing. I understand it's not an easy task, you know, to meet on a regular basis and deliver like 4 white papers that the team is aiming to deliver. That is commendable. You know, coming from different industries, coming together, and you know, defining a common goal, working towards a common goal. So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate all the efforts. The question that I have for the group is for sustainability, right? Like, if we see the sustainability metrics for Asia versus Europe versus North America are different in most cases. I think so. Europe leads the sustainability, like, and then North America is followed, and Asia Pacific region is like. So, how do you see the efforts that the team is putting in will help? How do you answer those kinds of you know, differences between requirements from sustainability, and how do you see for legacy data centers the sustainability metrics to be implemented?
So yeah, there's a lot in there. I think that harmonization across regions will probably most likely be driven by some of the global companies which deploy globally, right? Because they're going to have a corporate mandate to report. So that'll help push things across regions, and we've seen that in all other sorts of industries. I lost track of the second question. Shoot. Yeah. So, in any event, I think that's going to be the main thing. So.
I think we have one last question.
Yep, Tim Cassidy, Nalco Water. I have a quick question about, so not to beat a dead horse, but the sustainability metrics piece, because I think it's extremely interesting. What about, do you cover it in your white paper? I haven't read it. Anything about how to appropriately track these metrics real time? Any suggestions or recommendations that the industry can center around in order to provide clear visibility on an ongoing basis, especially with legislation and regulation?
So I'm sorry, how to report or track?
Track and report real time.
Oh, yeah. I think that's some of the next effort that Mark was talking about, right? Hey, should this be quarterly, monthly, yearly, real time? You know, things like waste are not going to be, because you have to measure stuff coming in and out of the facility. But I think that's going to be the next effort on granularity on that. Good point.
And just to say that the actual security aspects of being able to transmit the data out of the co-location facility is also something that has got to be worked on to make sure that there is confidentiality when required. So yeah, it's definitely in progress. Definitely being thought about and worked on.
Thank you.
All right, we are at the mark, so let's thank our speakers for their insight.